Hey there guys, Rowdy here with the Lancers, and today I am bringing you my budget Phantom Knights deck for post-Soul Fusion. This deck is very much of a more fun build of this. This isn't like a great build, as seen by how many of just the raw trap cards I'm running. This one's more just, I opened a couple of the Legendary Hero decks, pulled some cards out of it, and this is what I have. I think Phantom Knights are one of the decks where you don't necessarily need to run them with anything like Burning Abyss or any of that stuff to actually make them get cool plays across, because they have a ton of cool plays on their own that you can get off without needing a bunch of the overpowered cards. So without further ado, let's get into it. Starting us off, I play 3, the Phantom Knights of Ancient Cloak. He's pretty self-explanatory, being able to banish and search. He's a target for Silent Boots to special summon himself, and you can go into your rank 3 plays with him, like most of the Phantom Knights. Next I play 3, Silent Boots. Again, very self-explanatory. This is a Phantom Knights deck, so you play 3 Silent Boots. It banishes itself to search a Phantom Knight spell or trap card, which is also extremely nice. Then I play 3, Ragged Gloves. Again, another one is just the level 3 Phantom Knights, being able to get into your rank 3 combos. When he's banished from the graveyard, you can dump a Phantom Knights card into your graveyard, so if you absolutely need it, you could dump something like Ancient Cloak to search Boots. And then I play 2 Kagemucha Knight. I went with Kagemucha Knight and nothing else in this deck. I like Kagemucha Knight's ability to put itself on the field. It's a level 3, meaning that if you wanted to go into Breaksword with him, you could. He's a Dark Monster target for Rusty Bardiche. I didn't really like the Blue Mountain Butter Spy in here all that much, so I'm just playing the 2 Kagemucha Knight. You could definitely play the Blue Butter Spy if you wanted to, but I only really run the 2 Kagemucha. Next, for the spells, I play the 2 Phantom Knights Rank Up Magic Launch. This card is really great, being able to get into... you're actually able to use Supreme King Dragon Dark Rebellion in this deck because of Launch's effect. And if you get into things like Dark Requiem Xyz Dragon, that's a really good card to try to close a game out with. Launch, I only really run it at 2. When I ran it at 3, it was a little bricky. But you could probably up the number of copies if you wanted to, if you're running more than 40 cards. I think this one is 40 cards exactly, but I could be wrong. The rest of my spells are just kind of normal utility spells. So I play 1 Twin Twisters, 1 Dark Hole, 1 Rhoda, 1 Monster Reborn, and 1 Foolish Burial. These cards all come out of the Legendary Hero decks, like the rest of the cards that I've shown thus far. I don't have very many cards in this deck that don't come from the Legendary Hero decks. This is very budgety. Buying 2 of the Legendary Hero decks will get you most of what you need, or you could just buy the Phantom Knight deck on its own if people are selling it at like your local card shop. I know mine does. And then closing us off, the first 3 cards that don't come from Legendary Hero decks are our 3 Allure of Darkness. This one is definitely worth it in this deck, and I know I don't run a ton of monsters. However, with the Phantom Knights trap cards, it doesn't really hurt you all that much to dump your hand into the graveyard. I know that sounds weird. But you've got a lot of the Phantom Knights cards that'll special summon themselves from the graveyard while they're there. If you end up dumping things like your swords or your wings, you can banish those to special summon Phantom Knights from your graveyard. Things like your Xyz monsters that you just kind of want to recycle, so that way you can use Launch. I like to run it at 3. You could run it at less in this deck, but I would not recommend it. And then for our trap cards, play 3 Phantom Knights Fogblade. Yes, this comes out of the Legendary Hero decks. This secret is one that I got from my buddy after I only had 2, because there's only 1 per deck. I only had 2 and I wanted to go play in our locals with it. So I had to pick up a 3rd copy from him. You could pick up another one off of just the deck itself, or you could purchase it as a single. I don't know how expensive it is as a common, but it's a common, so I don't think it's going to be all that expensive. Then I play 3, the Phantom Knights of Wrong Magnet Ring. I like Magnet Ring in this deck a lot, especially if you Fog Blade something and they use it as a material for something like an Ixchis. You can use Magnet Ring to pop that still face-up Fog Blade and draw 2. If you absolutely need to, it would be easy to dump one of your monsters into the graveyard with Wrong Magnet Ring to draw 2. And being able to just cancel an attack and then get another bonus draw off of that is something that I really like doing in this deck. It's not hard to do in this deck either. However, I would understand if you didn't want to play it. Next I play 2, the Phantom Knights of Mistclaws. Mistclaws is their newest card of support other than Bardich. It's a good late game card, being able to cycle back through your banished Phantom Knights so that way you can get into your last Break Sword or get into that final Dark Rebellion push if you absolutely need to if you're running the level 4s. I only really run it at 2 because running it at more seemed to... I was opening it with it at the beginning of the game, which isn't horrible, but that's not exactly what you want sometimes. And its graveyard special summoning effect isn't the greatest because it requires you to have a Phantom Knight in your graveyard, but most of the times you're going to be banishing those Phantom Knights to search or dump cards into the graveyard. Next I run 2, the Phantom Knights of Shadow Veil. I like playing this one. Its attack boosting effect really isn't all that big of a deal. It's usually going to end up in your graveyard without you actually activating it. But having it in the graveyard and then going to suffer that direct attack, you can pop both of them on the field and shove off 2 of those attacks. And then if you have something like Wrong Magnet Ring, you can cycle through Shadow Veils as well as targets for that to draw 2. I like playing it. You definitely don't have to play it. I just think it's a funny tech choice. Next I play 2, Lost Vambrace. This is really good against any like Ixchis or Synchro-oriented decks. Being able to just turn one of their monsters instantly into a level 2 if they need a higher level monster is something really great that you could do. If they're going for that big rank 8 Ixchis play, you can flip that, turn one of their monsters to level 2, and then they're locked out of that play entirely. It's a pretty funny gimmick card to get off. Being able to put itself on your field as a level 2 is something for Cursed Javelin. Not saying you would play Cursed Javelin in this deck, but you could with this card. Then I play 2 Phantom Knight Sword and 2 Phantom Knight Wing. Both of these cards are really good. They've got good defense effects. Banishing them from the graveyard allows you to special summon Phantom Knights back from your graveyard. I've used their defense effects a lot, but I more so use them when they're in the graveyard to revive as many Phantom Knights as possible. Mostly because once you get into the late game, you might start running out of steam with how many you've got banished, unless you're playing something like Necroface in here. Having their abilities to just repeatedly summon back out the same Phantom Knights if you're using those Phantom Knights as materials is nice. However, if you banish this and special summon that monster back from the graveyard, it's going to get banished when it leaves the field. So normally you should be using it for materials for like an Ixchis summon. And then finally, a couple one-offs. Tomb Shield, Shade Brigandine, and Dark Gauntlets. Dark Gauntlets I like playing just so that way you can, when you're in late game, throw it on the field and have it gain a crap ton of attack. Shade Brigandine is a very good card to be able to set up plays first turn if you're trying to go into your Rusty Bardich plays. A lot of people recommend that you set that using his effects, that way you can flip it up and go further with your play extension. Tomb Shield I don't use a lot, and I'm leaning more toward taking it out if I got a couple more cards that I would actually like really want to run in here. Dangerous Tsuchinoko would definitely be something that you could run in here instead of things like Tomb Shield and some of the traps that you don't want to run, because Tsuchinoko isn't like it's not a very bad card. It's a level 3 that puts itself on the field regardless of whether or not it's discarded, and a lot of your Phantom Knights cards will go off while they're in the graveyard, which is nice. But because of how many of them are spells and traps, you can usually set a fair amount of them, reveal Tsuchinoko and dump it, and then special summon it back onto the field, and be able to get into things like Break Sword. But Tsuchinoko's expensive, so he doesn't exactly fit in a budget deck. And then for our extra deck, I run 1 Cursed Javelin. This is just because of the fact that I run Lost Vambrace in this deck. He's gotten a few clutch plays in before. Being able to negate effects and decrease a monster's attack to 0 during either player's turn is pretty funny. Especially if you're going against a deck with a ton of high attack beaters, being able to drop them to 0 instantly is great. Sometimes people won't read your cards because of the fact that you're summoning a rank 2, and then you can use Cursed Javelin's effect against them during their battle phase when they go to attack over it. A lot of people get very headstrong about decks like the Phantom Knights when you're running so many trap cards and such, so it's a really good option to kind of go into and wait for them to see if they're actually going to expect the play to come or not. Then I run 2 Breaksword. I want to go up to 3, but I only bought 2 Legendary Hero decks. Breaksword's extremely good, especially if you summon him with 2 legitimate monsters. Being able to cycle through, get your rank 3, pop it, get your rank 4, overlay into Dark Rebellion, detach, rank up magic for Dark Requiem, all one turn. He is extremely good for just being a basic piece of removal. He puts Phantom Knights back onto the field, even if he's destroyed while he doesn't have materials, even if those materials weren't attached to him. If you've got those 2 Phantom Knights, you can summon both of them back with his effect, which I've done a couple of times. He's a very good centerpiece of this deck, and I would probably run him at 3 if I could. Next I run 2 Dante, Traveler of the Burning Abyss. Again, this is more so because of the fact that the trap cards benefit from being in the graveyard. Being able to cycle through them that easily is extremely nice. Just being able to dump things into the graveyard by milling the top 3. If you mill any of your Phantom Knights monsters, you can banish those to search. And having a little bit of a beater in the deck is nice, because not a lot of the monsters in here are beaters unless you're really going for plays. I play 1 Leviair the Sea Dragon. I liked him at 1. You could probably run him at 2. I just did not like the fact that he wasn't a dark monster, that he didn't really do anything interactive with the Phantom Knights other than bring back your banished ones. But you can't exactly link him away for things like Rusty Bardiche if you're going to summon him, meaning you're probably going to be running things. You're going to be expecting you to have a link monster on your field, which isn't always the easiest thing to do in this deck. The downside of the Phantom Knights is that they normally only can really put a couple of monsters on the field each turn. And Leviair the Sea Dragon is definitely a piece of tech that can cause this deck to suffer because of that. I run it at 1 though, just in case I've got the extra resources to go into Leviair, put another Phantom Knight that I've got banished back on the field. Not a bad combo at all. Next I play 1 number 86 Heroic Champion Ron Gominod. I like playing him in here, not that I actually really get his effect off all that often, but I know the Bamboozler guy is a rank 3, so you could attach him to Ryan Gominod. Ryan Gominod is one of the cards that came with this deck, and so I left him in here just for gimmicky plays, just in case I ever got, like, the actual play off. If I had something like flipping over Lost Vambrace after I swarm my field with the trap cards, I've gone into Ryan Gominod with about 4 materials before, which is not bad in the slightest. That night, if you've got 2 of your rank up magics in the graveyard, you could banish them and attach 2 Phantom Knights from your hands to him. Not a bad card. Probably only play him with the actual bamboozling spirit. Playing him on his own doesn't really do very much for you. Next I play 1, number 41, Baguska, the Terribly Tired Tapir. I like Baguska in any deck that can make rank 4s, really. Just being able to slow a game down is something that a lot of decks cherish with their cards. That's why I like playing it whenever the game is getting really tough and I have the ability to put the 2 level 4s on the field, whether it be my trap cards or whatever. Put Baguska on the field and just grind out the game for as long as possible until you can get the things that you need to get off the plays that you need to get off. I only play him at 1 though, mostly because of the fact that he's an earth type, you can't really rank up into him, or any of that stuff. Next I play 2, Dark Rebellion Ixchis Dragon, and 1, Supreme King Dragon Dark Rebellion. Supreme King Dragon Dark Rebellion is in here because if you have your Break Sword with no materials, you can rank him up straight into Dark Rebellion. Dark Rebellion Ixchi's Dragon is in here because of, again, Break Sword's effects to special summon back your Phantom Knights. You can instantly go into Dark Rebellion Ixchi's Dragon. And both of these cards are fodder for Dark Requiem Ixchi's Dragon to be ranked up into. My primary play that I do in this deck is Break Sword into the Dark Requiem, which I will showcase that combo at the end of this video. And then finally, for your Link monsters, you play 1, Wee Witch's Apprentice. It's a Dark Monster-based deck. It's pretty self-explanatory. And 2, the Phantom Knights of Rusty Bardiche. I play this mostly because it's a Phantom Knight Link monster. It's got a very good effect. Being able to instantly set any of your Phantom Knights is something that any of your Phantom Knights traps is something very great. If you want to end your turn with a Rusty Bardiche, you could always set Fog Blade at the end of your turn and go into plays like that. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out real quick, and I'm going to show you the combo with Break Sword. Move this down. There we go. So you only really need 2 cards for this combo to go off, and it's Ancient Cloak and Boots. This is the primary combo that you can go into if your opponent has at least 2 monsters, which isn't really hard to see nowadays. Start off by summoning Ancient Cloak, activate Boots effect to special summon himself, and then you overlay straight into your Phantom Knights of Break Sword. Detach a material from Break Sword to blow up 1 card your opponent controls, and you can blow up Break Sword himself, and when Break Sword is sent to the graveyard, he special summons back both of those Phantom Knights as level 4 materials. You can overlay both of those then into your Dark Rebellion Ixchi's Dragon. Target 1 monster your opponent controls, half its attack by detaching both materials, and while Phantom Knights of Ancient Cloak or Silent Boots is detached, you can banish them to search. Banish Silent Boots. Silent Boots will search your Rank Up Magic Launch. Activate Rank Up Magic Launch. Overlay straight into Dark Requiem Ixchi's Dragon. And now you have Monster Effect Negation. It'll reborn any of your Ixchi's monsters. And he can gain a crap ton of attack, and his attack game is permanent. It decreases a monster's attack to 0 instead of just halving it like Dark Rebellion does. And if your opponent puts out a gigantic beater on the field, you can instantly go into that. And then if you want to end your turn on that, you can banish Ancient Cloak, search out your Fog Blade, set your Fog Blade, and pass. And this is only 2 cards. If you've got any other combination of 3 other cards in this deck, probably a bunch of your other Phantom Knights traps, you could go into more extensive plays, maybe go and extend into a Rusty Bardiche if you have the right hand. But thank you all for watching. I very much appreciate the support, and I will see you all in the next video. Have a good night.